Hey guys, how's it going? Steve here, and I'm going to try something a little bit different today. So over the past week or so, I've been hearing a lot about this game called Gone Home. I follow a lot of kind of video game reviewers and critics on Twitter, and it seemed to be the talk of the internet for at least the past week. And I decided, maybe I should look into this and find out what it is, because people just kept talking about the experience they had while playing it, but nobody ever really kind of said what sort of game it was. And you can kind of draw your own conclusions from the way that it was described in their kind of vague synopsis. And I understand now, after playing the game, why they talked the way they did. The reason is because the game is short. It's very easy to give a lot of the plot away just by talking about it, even very briefly. So what is the game? The game is essentially a throwback to the old point-and-click adventures of the 1990s. As soon as I booted the game up, I was really kind of transported back to the days of Myst and Riven. I played a lot of point-and-click adventures growing up, and I still do. I think for a lot of people these days that maybe didn't have that experience back then, their point of reference would be the Telltale Back to the Future or Walking Dead series that has been going on. Telltale has really brought that style of game back into the mainstream and at the forefront of video games, with Walking Dead winning Game of the Year last year. Point-and-click adventures are kind of a hot topic and something that people are talking about more so than they have been in the past, even 10-15 years. So I was very excited to jump into the game. So basically what the game is you play as a young woman named Caitlin Greenbrier. She's returning home after a sabbatical in Europe. She's been gone for about a year, give or take. She arrives home, and the house appears to be ransacked. It's empty. Her family is gone, and you're left kind of to your own devices to figure out exactly what happened here. And this is very much a game that reveals itself as a found story. You search through the house, and as you search, you will come across notes and journals, and these journals will then turn into audio logs as narrated by your younger sister, Sam. This is all the story you're going to get. As you move through the house, these audio logs will trigger, and from that, you're able to piece together what exactly has happened. If you're kind of got the eagle eye that you kind of need to play point-and-click games, you can pick up on little things that you normally wouldn't notice, because most games are going to give you a lot of story very up front. It's be very apparent what the direction of the game is, where they want to take you, and what is going on. You have to really kind of read notes. A lot of people, when you get notes in a game, you'll look at it, glance it over, and you'll toss it aside and you'll never go back to it. But if you read all of the notes and little things that you pick up in this game, you really do get a dimension of the story that's not told through this audio log, mainly because they do the kind of sensible thing in that these notes are written by someone else's point of view. I think far too often in video games, you're kind of given that all-knowing perspective, where there's kind of like an omnipotent presence that knows everything that's going on, both past, present, and future, from everybody's viewpoint. And in this game, you're only getting Sam's viewpoint. You never once get the viewpoint of the parents, with the exception of a few audio logs where she describes, how the parents have reacted to the things that are going on in her life. And what's kind of neat is that all of this is done in this journal, and the reason being is because you were in Europe. So all this stuff happened while you were gone, and I guess you're left to assume, at least what I assumed while playing the game, is that you probably had very little to no contact with your family, because you would imagine that this stuff would have been brought up, or Sam would have said, when we talked about this the last time we spoke. You do find some postcards through the game to let you know that at least messages on your end have reached the family, but with the game taking place in 1995, you don't have the conveniences that you have now with widespread cell phone usage, things like Skype, texting, things of that nature. I think that it's really interesting that this game really is a true point-and-click adventure. There is no combat, there are no enemies, and it's kind of very refreshing to just have this sort of experience. And the way I played the game is exactly the same way I played Journey, which is something that I would compare this to a lot. I played it in one sitting. It took me maybe about an hour and 10 minutes. It's tough to say. I didn't really keep track of how long I was going to play, because I didn't expect to sit down and beat it in one sitting. I knew that it was a short game, but I was assuming maybe 4 hours or less. But when it ended up being that I can kind of feel like I was getting towards some type of conclusion, I just kept playing. and I do wish I would have taken some notes. I'm recording this the day I beat the game. It's currently 9 o'clock at night, and I beat the game around 5 p.m. So it's been a few hours since I beat the game. And I sat down a little bit ago and just wrote down some observations and some notes. I really don't want to talk about the story too much. I did put a tag on this saying that it's full spoilers, and really the reason why I put the full spoilers tag on is because I don't want to ruin anything at all. I really do think that this is a game that you should go out and play and experience for yourself. And the interesting thing that I found was after I finished the game, I went online and looked at other people's opinions and reviews and gameplay footage, and noticed that there's a lot of things that I picked up on that they didn't, and things that they picked up on that I never saw. So there is quite a bit to this game, despite the fact that it does very much feel like you're being pushed along a set course. And what's kind of cool about it is, just like when you feel like you're at a dead end, there was a point in the game where I just felt like, oh man, I'm going to get stuck in a second. I know I'm going to get stuck. I really don't know where to go next. You get a push in the right direction. You'll find that journal entry that is like, okay, it triggers this. The way the game works is you're in this house, and as you move through the house, every time you move into a new room, your map updates. So your map is constantly updating, and it'll update for events happening in other rooms of the house that you're not currently in. So it's not necessarily backtracking, because the game does take place in this confined area. I mean, yes, it is backtracking, but there's always something new. It's not like you're going back to, have to deal with something that you just missed. It just wasn't available to you at that point. So I do like that. That's kind of how they cleverly get away with having you repeat trips to the same areas. The found story aspect is really neat, that the story unravels as you're going through it. It's not something that comes in chunks. It's sort of a constant flow. The game never bombards you with filler. It never hinders you from moving forward. You have the opportunity to stop and look around if you want. It's not forcing you to go forward. You can explore rooms and read all the notes you want. There's no time limit. There's no pressing issue to boost you forward in the narrative. You can take your sweet time and really enjoy the atmosphere of the game. And the atmosphere of the game is really neat. You're in this kind of old house. There's a storm going on outside, and the audio design is absolutely phenomenal. I really will say that if you're going to play this game, please play it with headphones on, and you'll really get the full experience of the thunder rattling the windows and your footsteps being kind of the only sound you hear at certain parts. The game does give off a very kind of eerie vibe to it, and I felt like, okay, at any second now this is going to turn into like a full-blown horror game or something to that nature. You kind of harken back to games like Amnesia, where you're by yourself, you're very isolated, and you're never sure what's going to happen around the next corner. Thankfully, this game never does that. It doesn't all of a sudden just take everything that's great about it and turn it upside down by being like, oh yeah, it's monsters in the dark. This is a very human story. It's a very emotional story. This will very much affect some people that play it. It deals with a topic that's kind of on the minds of a lot of people in this country, and I really don't want to go into it because I don't want to ruin things for you, but it's just safe to say that this game has a very socially conscious message to it. It's very topical, it's very current, and I think the fact that they do dip this game in the 90s nostalgia makes you remember, hey, this isn't a new issue, this is something that's been going on for a while now. It's just that it hasn't been solved, so we're still dealing with it. And the 90s nostalgia thing is actually really neat. I grew up in the 90s, and so the fact that the only music you ever hear in the game is Riot Girl music is just kind of interesting to me. I remember bands like Bikini Kill, and I'm a big Veruca Salt fan, so hearing that stuff is kind of neat. And just hearing the way that Sam describes her best friend being in a band, just kind of makes me remember the days of me being in bands and playing small shows. And it just, the way that this game hit me was in a totally different way that's going to affect someone that's in the same situation that Sam is. And I think that it just goes to show that this is a great story, and the fact that while it has a very direct message, it can affect people in different ways, because despite the fact that it is a short game and there's not that much story to it, there is enough that is a very full story, and you don't feel disappointed at the end. You don't feel like you didn't get enough of the story to feel like the conclusion that they do give you is, it's unsatisfactory. It is a cliffhanger ending, and a lot of people do have problems with that. I don't particularly have a problem with it in this case, because it is that kind of game where you're supposed to think about it. And in games where you're supposed to kind of sit back after you're done playing, contemplate it, think about it, that really is the best way to end the game, because I have to imagine now, that people are going to be talking about this game for some time to come. Message boards will be full of people giving their theories on what happened, and, oh, did you see this? Because I didn't see this, and what do you think this means? And anytime you can create that kind of buzz and create that kind of hype for your game, it's a great thing. There are, like I said, there is no combat, there are no enemies, there's very basic puzzle elements, there'll be some safe combinations you have to find, and they'll be kind of hidden, in not random locations, but just kind of around the house. It is a very kind of real looking house. There's a home office and a study and people's bedrooms and a living room and things like that, and most of the stuff you're finding are files, like manila envelopes that have paperwork in them. You're kind of just shuffling through paperwork or notes left here and there. I mean, it's very video gamey in the sense that very crucial pieces of elements are just crumpled up and tossed into a waste paper basket, or just left laying out on a table. Like, why on earth would this daughter's postcards be just spread out randomly through this house? So it doesn't break the immersion, because it is that found story where these pieces can't happen now because they have to happen later in order for the story to make sense. So I'm fine with that. That's kind of the most video gamey that this game gets, and I really wouldn't consider this a video game. I would consider it interactive narrative or interactive fiction, sort of like a Heavy Rain, although Heavy Rain is 10 times the video game that this is, just for the sheer fact that, you're interacting with people and objects, and there's, you can die and, things like that. There's weapons in that game. It's just that's a more so a video game, which is crazy because by most standards, Heavy Rain is barely a video game. It is kind of like a movie that you just sort of press buttons here and there. With Gone Home, it's much more of just an experience. Like Journey, you're kind of along for the ride, and it's quite nice to see games doing this and people trying to make this, a genre that comes alive and something that can be viable for a company to devote their resources to. The one problem I have with this game is that I do think the price is a little high. They are asking $20 for this game. It's $17.99 on Steam. I'm not sure if the developer is selling it for $20 or the $18. If you are going to buy the game, buy it from the developer. That way they get the money. It's made by the Fulbright Company or Fulbright Corporation. I'm very sorry that I didn't write this down in my notes, but it's Fulbright. You'll be able to find it through that. I think it's a little high, and it's the same way that I feel like $15 is a little high for Journey, because, you have to start looking at it from the price point of a movie. And if I'm going to go to a movie and see it in the most ridiculous way possible, let's say 3D IMAX, I'm paying $17.50 for my ticket. And that's a, really immersive experience. And it's kind of the atmosphere of being at the movie theater with other people that are really into what you're seeing, because the people that are going to pay that much to see that movie are people that really want to see it. So when you compare that, that $20, for just rounding up, to this, which is done in an hour, and yes, it is a very immersive experience. It's just, if you're on a budget and this is something you're interested in, it's not the best investment, because that $20 could probably be spent in a game that's going to get you more entertainment value. It's not this game is probably more important than whatever game you're probably going to spend that money on. And I think that it's a game that should be experienced by anybody that has a passing interest in games that have a great story. It's really tough to say, hey man, you could spend this $20 and get this game that's going to give you 80 hours of entertainment versus this $20 game that's going to give you an hour. Now, while this game's message might stick with you and affect you, and you might be more fulfilled after you're done playing it than you would be with that other game, I just say it's really tough if you're on a budget. If you have the money to burn, buy this game and play it and really enjoy it. I don't know if it's a game you're going to want to play more than once. You may, just for the sheer fact that you want to see some things that you didn't see in your first playthrough. I can certainly understand that, but it's not a game you're going to keep going back and back and back to, because it is the same thing every time. It's never going to get different. There aren't any multiple endings or anything like that. There aren't any choices you can make, so it's not like you can go back and see what would have happened if I did this or said this, and that's fine. For what it is, it's a wonderful experiment, and I really hope they do more like this. I think this company shows a lot of promise. What I would love to see them do is pick a topic, a story, and really make a full-blown long form game. And I think the best way for them to do that would probably be go the episodic way that Telltale does. Here's the game, it's $25, $5 an episode, and you just release them every couple of months, or if you want, you release this one big shot at one time. I think these guys have the talent to do it. Unfortunately, of course, financial situations start to occur and things like that. Who knows if they have the funding to go forward with something like that, but I really would like to see what they do next, because from what I've seen, the critical reception to this game has been phenomenal. 5-star reviews left and right, people giving it perfect scores all over the internet, people talking it up. I follow, like I said, I heard about this game through Twitter, and some of the people that I follow on Twitter, they have hundreds of thousands of followers, and if you can even take a fraction of that, I have to imagine that this would be a profitable game for them, especially at the $20 price point, because if you think about it, most indie games are at 15 or less, and most are at 10. So if you can get enough people to purchase this game for that $18 to $20, that's hopefully not only paying the people that made it, because they definitely deserve to make some money off this game, but it could also have lined their pockets for what comes next. And I really hope that they do something neat. And the other thing I really hope for is that other people that are making games take note from this game and realize that the story of your game doesn't have to be ham-fisted and just rammed down our throat. It can be slower and methodical. Not everything has to be set up and revealed within the first hour of the game. I understand that you're trying to hook people in to make sure that they keep playing your game, but you have to understand that sometimes people don't want everything told to them up front. There's a lot of times in a game where I'm given too much information and I can figure out how the game is going to end, and I don't like that. I had no idea how this game was going to end. I pretty much had it set in my mind, towards the ending sequence, how this game was going to end. And it was not even close to what I expected, and I love that. I absolutely love that. That's my favorite part of my time playing this game, is that the ending is not what I expected. And that's great, because the ending I had in my head would have been very cliched and very done before. And the fact that they didn't do that, I really love it. And I wish that more companies, while they're writing their story, would be like, hey, our game ends like this. Does any other game end like this? What about movies? They all end like this. Maybe we shouldn't end it like this. And for me, as someone that's written a lot of things in his life, I find myself kind of going back to those tried and true methods of ending stories and giving the reader a conclusion. And half the time, it's like, man, this is terrible. I feel like I've read this before. And what's really great about this game is I didn't feel like I played it before. And with most games, you feel like you've played it before. Once you've played one third-person cover-based shooter, you've played most of them. Once you've played most first-person shooters, you've played most of them. Even point-and-click games, you've pretty much played the archetype, and you know what's coming, and you know what's expected of it. And with this, when it kind of turns it on its head and be like, hey, you know what, we're a little bit clever than you. We know what we're doing, and just trust us and come along for the ride. And I really enjoyed that. Just some quick thoughts before we go. I talked earlier about the audio design. The voice acting in the game is great. The actress that plays Sam is wonderful. She has a fantastic delivery. She has the right emotional points in her delivery when they need to be. It doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem rushed. It doesn't seem like she was just doing this to collect a paycheck. It seems like she actually cared about this project. And anytime you can get voice actors that care about what they're doing, it always adds to the experience. that's pretty much it. You know, I'm looking at my notes, and I think I kind of hit on everything I want to talk about. I definitely recommend the game, and I would say that if you can get past the price, go and get it now. I assume that this will probably be on sale later on. You know, if you are worried about that, you can always wait and pick it up on a Steam sale, or maybe it will be half off. But if you can spare the cash, I urge you to go and pick it up. It's called Gone Home, made by Fulbright. It's available now on PC only, and I don't imagine that this will probably come to other platforms. I think that the cost to put it on other platforms, you know, like a PSN or an Xbox Live, would probably greatly offset their chances of doing that, because, you know, to get it up there and pay all the costs, and, you know, if something goes wrong and they have to patch it or anything like that, you know, once word gets out that it is kind of short, I don't think that they'll be able to compete against other games hitting those services at the same time. So it probably will stay a PC exclusive. If anything, maybe we'll get an iPad or an iPhone or an Android version of this game. You know, so I know a lot of you out there that maybe don't have a PC, you know, but maybe have an Android tablet. Maybe in the future, hopefully they'll put something out, because I can see this coming to a platform like that. But that's going to do it for today. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and listen to what I had to say about this game. I just kind of had the itch to talk about it. It was one of those games where I know that nobody I know has played it yet, and I had to talk about the game. So I figured I'd come down here and to the studio, so to speak, and share my thoughts. So thanks again, guys, and we'll talk soon.